little bit of a niche to get into the fantasy world, and I mean I follow Cuban baseball, I follow Japanese baseball, I follow Korean baseball, so I know those
I
guys
would
a
even
little
like to go
bit.
see Australian League baseball because that's done during our summer, or no, during our winter.
Yeah, the Australian League is doing pretty well, and that's part of speaking of which, we do have this weekend thing with with the Red Sox and the Yankees playing in England, and people say like, why would these guys like it? It's like, well, Australian baseball is huge. It's like their third biggest sport now. You know,
Yeah, dude, I think that'd be cool, man. I think baseball in England's going to be neat.
I said
I mean, and I had a buddy who was I played dynasty leagues with, who was a former American who was living over in England, and he said you'd be surprised at how big American sports are over there because you can get, broadcasts from across the countries and different things depending on what you subscribe to.
I have in my long-standing league. Actually, I have two guys that live in England. One guy lives in Birmingham. One guy lives in London because they moved over time, and they're saying that baseball actually has a big thing. And like I know one of the things they told us is like to not talk about other podcasts, but if you there are some really interesting baseball podcasts that are run by British folks, and it gives you a real idea of like how discovering baseball is like. I'm not going to give the podcast names, but like you could follow people on Twitter like Baseball Brit or Absolute Bunts because they have the rhyming
I
slang.
follow that guy.
And Bat Flip Crazy. Those guys are all Brits. It's really kind of funny to rediscover baseball with those guys and what they do. Because there is a growing world of English baseball, and it sort of makes sense because they are so culturally similar to America, and they really haven't had the baseball moment yet. I think it's great that we're sending over two good teams to play over there. As I said, right now
Red Sox Yankees.
Yeah, Red Sox
That's
Yankees.
Gonna be awesome.
Right now, for the first time in your life, the Yankees and the Red Sox, neither of those teams are the most hated team in America. That's pretty cool.
Who do you think the most hated team in America is?
Well, because those guys are in Europe right now, it's probably the Dodgers or the Cubs. On Tuesday when they come back, they'll be back. They'll be the most hated team in America. But they're not in America right now. Gives a little. Yeah, who do they hate? Who does behind the Yankees? Who really has a lot of hate?
I really dislike the Dodgers.
Yeah, there is that San Francisco Dodgers thing. Which that hate is real. I'm part of the Cubs legacy, and people talk about the Cubs and the Cardinals thing, and I don't think that Cubs fans hate the Cardinals. I mean, Bears fans hate the Packers. Cubs fans, don't like the Cardinals, but they don't hate the Cardinals. But
that's because how can you hate people that nice? I mean, Cardinals fans are just a bunch of nice church-going, just real hunky-dory white people, man. There's some real Midwest folk. I've had the experience of living there.
But whereas I know a lot of guys. I know a lot of people from the San Francisco Bay Area, and the hate for the Dodgers is real there. It's bizarre,
it's real. But that's a whole Southern California, Northern California rivalry type thing. That's not necessarily just Bay Area, but yeah, that hatred for the Dodgers is true.
Yeah,
it's real.
Yeah, it's like I've the new thing with the Cubs is there's like a new rivalry between them and the Brewers, and I have a hard time getting behind that one either. And I think that's more real. But even growing up, the team I always hated and the natural real enemy of the Cubs I always thought was the New York Mets. It's a shame. It's a shame that they switched divisions and got away from them. It's that whole first city, second city thing. There's a lot of rivalries between New York and Chicago that are, it's like New York's got Broadway, but Chicago's got just as good Broadway. The whole thing with pizzas, the whole thing with, it's like they have that game every year where Doc Gooden or whatever, pitched against the Cubs. That was the big thing. Like I think it was one of the bigger mistakes in baseball was moving the Mets and the Cubs out of the same division.
Interesting.
Because to me that was always the team that you hated to lose to. Like you lost to a lot of teams being a Cubs fan in the 70s and 80s, but that was the only one. Like if we could beat the Mets, we'd be fine. Tuffy Rhodes hit 3 home runs on the opening day in baseball, and people bring it up all the time. And I always like to point out that it was against the Mets and off Doc Gooden, which just makes it even a little bit more impressive. What was the other thing? You had a thing about changing the rules because actually that came up. Somebody sent me a question on one of the things we were doing about because I will take this mantle gladly. It's like I like points leagues, but points leagues take a little bit of finesse to make the rules just so. And so if you start a points league and you have bad rules, you might need to change the rules in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it was one of those things where there was a major oversight by the owner, and I'm not going to name names because you all probably know him. So he started a league, 10-team league, and he's majorly huge rosters, okay? So with huge rosters, you'd expect that you would have a large amount of pitching leeway, right? And like the rules were discussed ad nauseum to the point where I almost had to tune out at a certain point because it was just so much discussion. Well, somehow there was an oversight on the innings pitched, and it was set for 1,000. When in reality, I think that there should have been. I don't know. I've never played in a league with 1,000 minimum, inning pitched rule before, and this I didn't even notice it. And it was brought to my attention by the league manager.
That wasn't a minimum. That wasn't a minimum. That was a maximum, right?
Maximum of 1,000 innings pitched. Yeah, which is insane. With as many roster spots as we had. So mind you, the majority of the league, I think I was at like 750 innings pitched when it was brought to my attention. The majority of the league is well over 600. Some people were in the 800s already. We weren't even at the All-Star break. So it's kind of like it's basically going to destroy the standings of the league based on this one aspect that no one was paying attention to.
Yeah, the person's knee-jerk response is, them's the rules, just deal with it. But sometimes the rules are so bad you have to make a change. Exactly,
but ultimately the decision was made to keep the league the same because a few people lost their minds about it. But it tends to be I'm not even going to say this because it's not fair, but in reality, it's the 2 or 3 people that are going to stand to benefit the most from this.
Well, I mean,
and one of them was my friend. You know what I mean? So it was it was a difficult situation. I put a poll up on Twitter. Ultimately, Twitter voted that we shouldn't change the rules, and ultimately that's what happened. The rules weren't changed. We ultimately agreed it was in the best interest of the league. But this is $180 a person league. There's a lot involved.
Let me give you the parameters of somebody else's situation that's not yours. You won't feel as close on. This guy started a Dynasty Points League because I recommended it to him. Okay. He didn't put in these rules about about capping stuff and I've told you about my constitution for my league. It's like 27 pages long. It's got 13 appendices. Right? It's really it's really a work of art because it tries to cover every little thing. So he decided in order to come from minor leagues, they had 60-man rosters. Right? So this way you could have like 10 minor leaguers and still field a team. 2 teams in this league. Because, you only start 13 offensive positions. 2 teams in this league have between them almost 100 starting pitchers on their teams. Right?
How?
Well, you figure, you have 13 starting pitchers, then you have, 40 bench players, right? So you start hoarding starting pitchers. And because it's a points league, if you keep popping those guys in 2 weeks, you're going to beat on other teams. Because you only, you don't need to have 2 first basemen, but it's a 60-man roster, which was designed so that you would have Luis Urias on your team, and you might have a JD Bleday or a Bryce Torang, or it was larger than normal, so you could field these minor leaguers, but there was nothing stopping you from fielding major leaguers. And by doing this, one team figured out, hey, I can roster 45 pitchers. Another team figured out I could roster 45 pitchers too, which keeps those pitchers away from everyone else. So there's literally no starting pitchers available for everyone else. Well, you know what? Your league is so screwed up that you really need to realign things right now in the middle of it. But how do you go about doing that? It's like the first thing you do if you're the commissioner, you have to admit you made a mistake. I did not see this coming. I did not know this would happen. And I do not really hate anybody for looking at the rules and finding the best way to beat the rules. But if you're going to be in a situation where only these 2 teams are going to be competitive because they hoarded all the pitchers, except for our 6, while you're playing them and your team's going to face 17 pitchers, right? And it's not fair. It's like, how would you? And I said, well, what you have to do is you got to go. It's like the first thing you have to do is realize if you put money up, you might have to eat the money because there's nothing you can legally do to change things. You all agreed to the rules as they were. They knew them up front just because they were a little better at finding the loophole.
And that's ultimately what came down to in this league. We all agreed to the rules, but it was the one thing that we all it was just an oversight. No one ever discussed it in the beginning of the year. It was like, oh, well, 1,000 innings, but it never came up not one time, and then it became an issue, 3 months into the season. Now, mind you, I'm in first place in this league, so I took major exception to the whole situation. Now I've had to adapt and overcome, and then mind you, I lose Jordan Hicks to an injury literally 3 days later. And he was like my only main closer, so it's a definite detriment to my team.
Well, the interesting about the low limit ones is that you can kind of. Look, if I've been in leagues where they've had fairly low, like I'm used to 1,500 innings pitched. I think that's pretty standard, right? Is like that's the max normally. What do you think the max?
I believe 1,500 is standard. Yes, that sounds correct to me.
But I think I was in a league a couple years ago where for some reason it was cut to 1,350. I have no idea why. And what I learned in that league was that you could sort of punt pitching because people would run out of pitching slots, and so like you could pick up a lot of good pitchers in August, because
I just think loopholes like that. It just why would you want to limit the activity of your league? Why would you want to punish the people that are? I mean, dude, I diligently don't miss starts. I haven't missed a lineup change all year long in any league that I'm in. I literally am like super diligent. And that's really tough to do for those of you that play fantasy in lots of leagues.
No, it
doesn't come easy.
I consider myself pretty diligent, and I'll miss probably, and I know this will sound like a lot, but I'll probably miss like 20 starts a year.
Yeah, I haven't missed any this whole season.
I do a good job of. I know we have a little bit of a philosophical difference between you and I, where I think like if I check into my lineup once a day, I'm good. I don't think you need to really do more than that, but it's like
once a day is sufficient to me.
But it's like well, we had that discussion about like like the free range waiver guys and stuff. It's like you have to be on there 3 times a day in order to make sure you're necessitating a thing. But I don't want to digress to that. I will oftentimes if I know like next week you're saying like you're going to go someplace for 4th of July. I'm not going for 4th of July, but if I were, I would on like July 2nd probably set my lineup through the weekend, knowing full well.
Sure, and I probably will do that.
Knowing full well that I'll probably pop in on at least Friday and make adjustments, but just in case I can't get to it on the 4th of July, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. I'll miss 20 days or so. Is that those kind of days happen. But
so Kevin, can I stop real quick? So Kevin says in the chat room, in-season rule changes to require 100% league member vote. That's correct, and like I said, we did not have that. So.
And the other thing is that if somebody literally was banking his year based on the rule the way they saw it,
one person exactly,
if one person did that, if he should be allowed to exit the league with his money. That's what I told him.
We gave everyone that option. You know what I mean? We gave the option of refunding the money. 1 or 2 people threw a stink about that. Like I said, it was a crappy situation, and I'm not even the commissioner of the league. I just happen to be a part of it.
But I mean, I was telling the guys like you're running a dynasty league, and if you were running it based on what I said to do, it's like then you told these guys up front. It's like, look, this is a dynasty league. It's like I really want you to pay 2 years up front, and I want a 5-year commitment from you. And I know that something might get in the way in 3 years, and you might have to leave, right? But I want you to say that right now my intention is to be here 5 years. When you have that kind of intention, you don't want to scrap everything because you made a mistake the first year. But
this is a keeper league as well, so I'm really hoping that this didn't rub like half the league the wrong way and that half the league bails after year 1.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it probably will. But actually, I told him, I go,
it's going to be an issue.
Dude,
this Rockies Dodgers game is awesome. Golly.
I haven't been watching it because I've been talking to you.
It is 8-8 tied up right now in the 7th inning.
And Trevor Story is still hurt.
Game. Yeah, this has been crazy.
That trade, when I traded for Baez, getting Baez to replace my Story thing worked out pretty well because Story's hurt. But Story will be back shortly. Not that serious, I hear. I just wonder if anybody on that team is doing well for Doug, because that's what's deep down. That's what's important. I own Daniel Murphy. And I own I only own 2 people. And Ryan McMahon. I own those 2 guys. Yeah. And I own an injured Story, and I own in another league. I own an injured Brendan Rodgers.
It's too bad you don't own Charlie Blackmon because that guy's been playing.
I do have Charlie Blackmon in one league. In my league with the podcasters, I'm in a league with a bunch of podcasters. I own Charlie Blackmon. I love that league because my pitching was so bad that like in the 3rd week of the season, I was in dead last with 32 points, and now I'm in 7th place with 78 points, and I've been lurking. Like the advantage of having a 4 ERA is there's a lot of up room to climb, and like I don't think I have the power to win the thing, but I'm going to come in third place in that league, and coming back from that kind of thing, it's like that's kind of cool, I'm the guy. I'm the guy with the mo.